think we're good. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, thank you everybody for coming to this presentation on doForms Day today. Today we're going to be talking about streamlining management through forms. We're going to go over some of the benefits you get as a manager and kind of the functionalities that we provide that enable you to enables your job to be easier. So the first thing I want to start off with, just before we kind of get going here, I'm here with Nick Bauer. He's running the keyboards for me. He's also keeping track of questions that come through. So on the bottom of your Zoom meeting, there should be a little question and answer section where you can go in there, basically click on that, input a question in. We've allocated the last 5 or 10 minutes of the presentation, depending on how many questions there are, to basically read them out loud and answer them live here. If we don't get to some of the questions, or if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than willing to meet with you one-on-one. So again, thank you everybody for coming. Let's get the presentation started, right? So some of the management form features we're going to be talking about today, I kind of have them listed out here. So I just want to talk a little bit about how, doForms as a product really gets everybody in the organization involved. So in other words, we're not just a mobile application. We're not just for data collection. We have a lot of features and functionalities, whether it be on our web portal or even some on our mobile application, that, managers, administrators, people that are in the office, not necessarily out collecting the data. We have a lot of great tools and capabilities that you can take advantage of in doForms, that'll make your life easier, make your job, job tasks more automated, things like that. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today, we're going to see live data, the ability to see live data, custom views, the report builder, form-based data sources, manager forms, bulk updating. We also got a couple of other things that we're kind of going to talk about here, but effectively doForms in the last year or so has really, turned into more of a full-blown workflow solution company instead of just a data collection. So in the past, we just had where you kind of had your mobile apps and you can collect data, and it was really more for the end users. But since then, over the last year or so, we've added in a lot of functionality, a lot of capability for managers, administrators, people that are seeing the data and manipulating the data and things like that. So we're kind of going to step through some of the new stuff and some of the stuff that's already in the system and kind of go from there. Right. Oh, and here's the second half of that list: assignment of data, MapBased data, data forwarding, exporting, our Excel plugin tool, as well as some integration capabilities. Right. So the first and foremost, we have See Data Live. Right. So simply put, we have a web portal associated to your account that all of your mobile users' data gets submitted to. That portal is, customizable. You can customize kind of the view that you're seeing there, the different fields you're seeing at a high level. It also allows you to do things like filtering, sorting, things of that nature. You can export out of there, but it's basically just a live and up-to-date portal of all the data that has been submitted from your mobile devices, for a particular date range. Like I said, you can kind of filter down by date. You can filter down by any of the fields that you have in your form. In that view data section, it's also separated out by projects and forms, so your form data is separate from each other. If you have form 1 and form 2, all that data is not commingled together. You kind of have a separate option for each and kind of can view the data separately. We also have projects where you can, let's say you have an East Coast and a West Coast division and you want both of them inside of your, single account, but you want the data to be separate. We have a concept of projects that are kind of like folders where you can basically say, these people are set to here, these people are set to here, and their data kind of is separated in the portal for you to view. So first and foremost, our web portal and our view data portal, allows you to kind of view this information right from there. So custom views, we talked a little bit about. So in our traditional, mydoforms.com portal, you have a little bit of customization around, you can pick and choose what questions to show at your high level view. So in your form view, we don't necessarily show the entire form. It kind of just allows you to kind of pick and choose a couple of questions to help you identify which record is which, right? So if you had, let's say, a service order, you might want to pick the customer information and the date information that you went and did that service on. In our new Workforce Manager portal, however, we have created a concept of custom views where each individual person can basically set up their own views. So you might have a set of data and you might have 5 managers, but each one of those managers can basically set up a customized view for them specifically, because not everybody needs to see the same information. You know, you might have a form that has 50 questions, but only 20 of them are relevant to this person, the other 20 to another person. You know, so you can basically set up customized views where you're picking and choosing what data gets kind of filled into that view. And basically you can manage all of that, you know, right from our new Workforce Manager portal. There is a new views section. Anybody who's not familiar or hasn't seen anything about the Workforce Manager portal, feel free to reach out to us. We can absolutely give you a demo, get you set up, and kind of get you using that as well. But yes, custom views, relatively new feature for us, basically allows every individual login that you have into the system, basically allows you to customize a view for yourself. And every time you log in, you can have your data kind of separated how you'd like to see it. All right. We also have a concept of a report builder. So the report builder is, just simply put, it's a consolidation tool. It allows you to take a bunch of submitted data, include it all onto a single report. So the report builder works a lot like our form builder does. It's drag and drop widgets where you're basically specifying a form that you'd like to report on. There is configuration settings such as filtering for specific things. You know, there's customization from the appearance perspective. You can put headers, footers, logos, color schemes, you know, that kind of stuff inside of your report as well. So fully kind of customizable in terms of how it looks. And the way that it kind of works is you set up what we call group bys, where you can group different areas of submitted data together, right? So for example, you know, let's say your organization had a timesheet form where, you know, your employee filled out a timesheet, you know, clock in and clock out for every day of the week. And at the end of the week, you wanted to get a weekly report of that user's time. So in that scenario, you could set up a report that is grouped by date. And what you would get on your report is the person's name, the Monday's information, Tuesday's information, Wednesday's information, Thursdays, Fridays, all consolidated. We also have counting and sum capabilities. So if you wanted to sum up all of the hours of all those days and get a weekly total number of hours that they worked, you know, if you want to count how many days they worked that week, you know, it's pretty flexible in that aspect. You can pretty much customize it to do whatever you need. The report builder also is on a schedule. So after you've configured it to include the data you want it to include, you've done all of your layout, you know, you can also configure it to run one-time reports, so it's just one and done, daily reports, weekly reports, or monthly reports, all of which you are specifying, you know, what day, what time of the day, what day of the week, you know, what day of the month, depending on what setting you're choosing, kind of lets you customize. And then the report just runs kind of by itself. You know, whatever the date and times that you have selected, that report will just continue to run kind of automatically for you. The report builder also has a custom template option. So this is actually pretty cool. So what the custom template option allows you to do is, you know, by default, the report writer has a pre-built layout, right? It's your header, your footer, and your data in between. But we've added in an ability to associate a particular Excel document to that report, where you can get the data dumped onto the first sheet, and then on the second, third, fourth, whatever sheets, you can run all types of pivot tables, you can create custom outputs. So, you know, a good example of this is, you know, we had done an incident reporting system for a government agency when they basically had to document, you know, at their location if there was any on the job incidents, you know, somebody got hurt, you know, somebody got injured, whatever it may be. But the fashion in which you had to report it back into the government to let them know it was a requirement that they basically needed to every month have an updated document of any incidents, but they couldn't just send a regular PDF. And there was a specific format that it needed to follow. You know, there were specific lines and areas that you needed to fill out, and it was a very specific format. So what we ended up doing with this customer is we built the custom format as a custom template. Then what we did is in our report writer, we used our report writer to dump all of the submission data from the incident form to the first sheet. And then on the second sheet, we set up all logic to map all the information from the first sheet into the correct areas on the second sheet. So at the end of the day, they got a generated PDF that looks exactly like the government document that they were required to send in. The benefit to that was they got to use the doForm, they got to use their doForms application to actually input the incident data, so they didn't have to write them on the piece of paper and then manually type them in. doForms kind of took care of formatting that for them. So we do have a custom template capability. It pretty much allows you to do any type of customization that you'd like to do. Not necessarily formats. You can also add in like VLOOKUPs and pivot tables, things like that. You can get really as crazy as you want with any of the Excel functionalities in there. And the report writer will just dump the data that you've included onto your first sheet for you to do whatever you need to do with it. Form-based data lookups. So form-based data lookups have become more and more popular recently because they give us an extra level of being able to view our data. So at a high level, what a form-based data lookup is, if you've ever seen the lookup management in doForms, when we say lookups, we're really just referring to drop-down fields, right? A data lookup tool is just a field that you have an Excel document, a CSV document kind of uploaded into doForms, and you can, drop down your columns. So in doForms, you can also create and publish a form and import data into that form in view data and use the form data as a lookup. So instead of it coming from an Excel document or a CSV document or some other system, outside of doForms that you're integrating with, you can actually put that information right into doForms and manage it in doForms. So, why that is useful is, first and foremost, it keeps everything that you're doing updated, right? So it allows you to, if you make a change to that data, maybe you're adding something, deleting something, editing something, that change gets applied out to all of your mobile devices automatically, right? So let's say you imported a list of, products, or maybe you wanted to create a database of all the products you've sold for a particular day, week, month, whatever it may be. The great thing about the form lookups is if you go in there and add something manually, it automatically kind of updates all of your devices to have that updated information. And then what we're able to do with these form-based data lookups is, we'll get into this on the next slide a little bit more, but basically, since it's in doForms and it's data in doForms, we can now present that data back to a manager on a mobile device. So if I just pop a screen over here for manager forms, this is kind of what I'm transitioning to here. So, think about as a manager, currently or in the past, the only way to kind of view your data would be to log into the system and, view your data on your system. But, what if you have your cell phone on you, you're not close to a computer and you just want to do a quick check or a quick lookup or something like that, right? You want to see some activity, whatever it may be. In the past, that wasn't really possible. But now with these form-based data lookups, we basically have the ability to use form submission data to create views. So as a manager, I could have, a specific manager form that is, customized to show me all of the products I sold today, for example, or it might be employees that didn't clock in today. And basically, depending on, what situation you're in, you can use the data that has been submitted to kind of customize a manager view that can be viewed, on the web as a form link or on the mobile device. But it kind of just lets you customize, whatever view you're looking for. We had mentioned views a little bit earlier in the presentation for the Workforce Manager portal, but this capability really makes it easy to kind of view that on the go, view that on the mobile, view it as a form link. You don't actually need to log into the portal anywhere. You can kind of just have it as needed, when you're in front of you there. So, these forms are highly customizable. Pretty much any data that you have been submitting throughout the day, whether that's products you've sold, whether that's people who didn't fill out timesheets, whether that is incidents that happened today, any set of data that you're using your forms to collect, we can then take that data and populate it into a manager view. So that way the manager can see all of the submissions for that day. Those manager forms can be used to not only view, but also to make edits. Using our retrieve and modify capability, you could set up a manager view and allow your manager form to actually be submitted and go and update the records from your employees in the field. So a good example of this would be, we have a customer who, they have a form, an invoice form that they fill out. And at the end of the day, they, they didn't want to sync automatically to QuickBooks because they like to make edits to their invoice before it gets synced over, and they wanted to manually import into QuickBooks. So, what they have in their form is a field that says, has this been synced to QuickBooks yet? Yes or no. And there's also a field that says, is it ready to be sent to QuickBooks? Yes or no. So what you can do on a manager form is, let's say you're the manager and you've just reviewed 10 of the invoices for that day. You can bring up your custom manager form. It brings up all of the, pieces of data or orders for that day or whatever, information you're looking for. And for these guys, they basically had a table that showed them anything that has not yet been synced over to QuickBooks, but is ready to be synced. And what the manager does is after they go ahead and sync that and import that into QuickBooks, they come back onto their manager form and they go row by row and say, okay, I got this one, I got that one, I got that one, I got that one, all of which get updated after they submit the form. So after they submit the form, that field for has it been synced to QuickBooks gets modified from a no to a yes. So the next time that they open up their form, it's only stuff that hasn't been synced over yet. So not only are they able to see everything that hasn't been synced, they're also able to go in there and say, I actually synced this one, and this one, and actually have that data get updated. And when they submit their form as a manager, it can actually update the forms. Right. So that's just a simple example, but you can basically use that, functionality in any real example. We have another customer with an example of where they, have a third-party organization for contractors, and they need to basically pay those contractors by a set rate. So they have a field in their form that basically says, have we paid this person yet? And as a manager, they're basically able to go in, send checks, cut checks to whoever, and kind of go down a list and say, okay, I paid this guy, I paid this guy, I paid this guy. And it's updating that record in their data to say, okay, this person's now been paid. And in their manager form, they have a custom view set up that basically says, only show me people that haven't been paid. So it's just a nice and easy way to kind of have some workflow added in, so you don't have to manually keep track of who, if I did this or did that. You can do that all in doForms and have your forms kind of update themselves based on, the views that you're doing. Like I said, they're very easy to use because they're highly customizable. You can basically customize what it is you're going to be viewing either on that form link or on that mobile device, as well as put in some update capabilities, right? You might want to go in and update all the orders for today and say these have all been shipped out. And instead of kind of needing to do that one by one, you can kind of do that all at one time. So manager form is very powerful, pretty much can take any of your form submission data and kind of spit that back out to you in any view or format that you'd like, as well as give you the opportunity to make updates to it if necessary. Right. So bulk updating, I touched on it a little bit there at the end. So with these manager forms, one of the great features is for bulk updating, right? So in the past, if I just go back to some of the examples that we just talked about, right? So in the past, I would have to go back into the system and edit those records one by one, right? So imagine you had 100 orders. You'd have to go in there and manually go in and edit each individual order to say, okay, this has been synced, this has been synced, this has been synced, right? Very time consuming. It's not very efficient. So what the manager forms allow you to do is kind of make those updates in bulk. So we kind of touched on this a little bit with the manager views, and they can kind of see forms, individual forms, or they can see table views, right? So you can basically have a table view. And the way that our retrieve and modify tool works is it will go row by row, and it will check that data row by row and make whatever updates you've associated to in that row when you submit. So, you might have 100 orders. If you want to update 50 of them to, sent out or synced or updated or whatever it may be, instead of needing to go record by record, you can just go down your table and check a radio button, click a button, check a checkbox, whatever it may be. And then when you go and do your submit, it bulk updates everything that you had in that table. Again, all of this needs to be customized, it needs to be configured correctly, but the capability is there to allow you to make bulk updates to any set of data that you have, instead of having to go kind of one by one and update them, one by one, which can be time consuming and again, is not very efficient, right? So we have assignment of data. So what we mean by assignment of data is, along with these manager forms, and bulk updating, especially, if you have some sort of system where, data comes in and then it needs to be assigned to somebody, it's kind of the same concept here. If you had, 10 pieces of or 10 orders come in and you had to assign, those 10 orders to, 5 different staff members, you'd have to go in there and manually kind of say, okay, this one goes to this person, that one goes to that person, but you'd have to edit each record individually to kind of do that. With the manager forms and with the data, the form-based data lookups that we have, you can, create a form that spits out all of the open orders, and then you have a drop down in your table that says who's this getting assigned to, and you can kind of bulk assign this order goes to him, her, him, her, or all 10 of these are going to the same person. Again, it's highly customizable, however your organization kind of works. But just very quickly gives you the ability to kind of say, okay, I had 10 orders come in. I want to assign these 10 to these guys or these girls, and you can kind of do it all in one submission instead of having to go one by one. Same concept with if things come in and they're specific processes for specific people. Excuse me. You can basically set conditions up that say, when an order comes in, if they need a part from this location, that form automatically gets sent to that location and updates the data to say, hey, Mike Smith at location 2 is going to take care of this one. So just a lot of flexibility, a lot of configuration in there, kind of do these bulk updates, assign people to different jobs or to different projects, things like that. Just kind of let you as a manager kind of do all of that, again, from your mobile, from a form link, or from the portal. We also have some map-based data, which is a relatively new feature. So the map-based data basically allows you to, on our dispatch and tracking system, when you're tracking your employees and you have breadcrumb trails, it also allows you to include some information in there. So, as your guys are driving around, or in some cases walking, excuse me, they basically can also have some information from their form get updated there. So not only are you seeing the trail of where they went that day, but when they're submitting data, you can also see the form information that you've seen there. Now, this is very powerful because you might be able to track your employee from their house to the job, look at the form that they filled out there, see how much revenue they may have generated at that particular spot, and you get all of that map tracking data as well as the form data all on one screen for you. So it's very easy to see, not only where the employee was, how long it took them to get there, how long they were actually at the site. We have like geofence capabilities now where you can kind of get, a trigger when they go into somewhere and a trigger when they leave. So all of this map-based kind of data gets associated to the form data that you may have filled out at that location. And you kind of get one consolidated view of the information you collected, as well as kind of the outlying factors for, getting there, leaving, how much time it took in between, kind of all that good stuff as well. So just kind of gives you a nice consolidated view of everything that you would need to see in one spot. All right, data forwarding. So data forwarding is a pretty popular tool inside of doForms. At a high level, basically what it allows you to do is forward a live form from one user to another user. So that can be mobile to mobile, or you can also forward to people outside of your doForms logins organization, and you can also forward to customers, to their email addresses. So why data forwarding is so, so special or unique, I should say, is because it doesn't require you to have a doForms license in order to receive a forward. If you do have a license, you can still forward to people, within your organization. But if you're outside, sending to a customer, maybe sending to some third party, whatever it may be, you can still send to an email address, and they actually end up getting a little form link that they can open up and view it on their browser and kind of, do what they need, fill out what they need to fill out. So, how this kind of ties into like the management side of things is, there's a lot of organizations out there that have a workflow process of, an employee fills out a form up until a certain point, and then there's a manager sign-off section at the bottom, where they have to kind of rubber stamp what that person did, make sure they didn't make any errors, whatever it may be. So in the past, if you didn't have doForms and you were using paper or whatever, you'd have to pick up that piece of paper, manually walk it over to that person, drop it off. Paper could get lost, they could forget about it, whatever it may be, right? Inside of doForms, you can fill out your piece of the form. You can select which manager you want to send it to. So it's not just a one-to-one. You can have a drop-down list of multiple people that you want to send, that you can send this to. And then you can basically trigger that to them. They'll get a message notification similar to like a text message where, if their volume's on, they'll hear a ding. If their vibrate's on, they'll get a vibrate. And the doForms application actually will tell them, hey, you have a new job. And when they open that up, they'll see everything that the first person had filled out. They'll see, and we can customize it so that way, they're not able to edit that, or maybe they are, depending on what configuration you have, but they can basically go in there, see everything the employee did, sign off for their signature. They click a button and it goes right back to the first person to notify them, hey, everything you did looks good. You can submit your form in. Similarly to, sending to a customer, especially nowadays with COVID, where nobody really wants to be too close to each other. Nobody wants to touch somebody else's phone or device or whatever it may be. You also have the ability to kind of forward to the customer, where you don't even need to be in the same place as them. You can forward to their email address. They open it up, use their mouse to sign off, put in their credit card information, whatever it may be. And when they hit submit, it comes right back to the user, and they can see all the customer sign off, whether they approved it, disapproved it, said this is too expensive, or said everything looks good, go ahead and start work. So forwarding, very powerful. Again, can send it to mobile, can send it to people outside of the organization. You can use it from manager features where if you have manager sign-offs for things or manager approvals for things, you can kind of add that into the workflow and have it automatically sent to managers, so they just know and have a nice mobile application to basically do this. Or if they want to do it on their computer, they can do it on their computer, right? So we have exporting. I talked a little bit about this earlier, but from the doForms portal, either from the new Workforce Manager portal or the doForms portal, we have all different types of manual exporting capabilities where you can go in there, select a set of records or individual records, filtered, sorted by date, whatever it may be. And there's a couple of different formats that you can do. Out of the box, we have Google Sheets, Excel, CSV, a couple of other ones that off the top of my head, I can't remember here, but text files, things like that. So basically you can go into your portal and export that data into any format that you would like. Once you have that data exported, you can do whatever you need to do with it. So if you're exporting to Excel and you have pivot tables or VLOOKUPs or, excuse me, anything like that, you can basically, do whatever you need to do from there. You can just use doForms portal as kind of the, where we're storing everything. And then when you want to export it and, do some analytics on it or make some edits to it, whatever it may be, you basically have that option. So outside of the manual method that we just kind of talked about, so the exporting requires you to log into the portal, manually select records, manually click an export button. The Excel plugin is a free tool that we offer to all of our customers that basically allows you to put a doForms menu item in your Excel menu. So the benefit of this is it kind of acts as a running list. And so what I mean by that is when you do a manual export, it's just going to export whatever information you have selected. The Excel plugin, on the other hand, remembers what you synced yesterday and then just adds the new stuff for today on top of it. So think of it more so as like an automatic download of all of your data into an Excel sheet with a big synchronize button. And every time you click synchronize, it has all of your data from the previous day's syncs and then just adds everything new at the time of your current sync to the top, right? So it's kind of just a running list of all of the data that you have for a particular form. But you can install that right into your menu. It's very quick and easy. You just log in with your account name, pick your form name, pick and choose the columns you would like it to sync over, and you can save that document and reopen it day after day and just continuously sync. So again, another great tool there. The last thing that we kind of have here is the integrations. So, especially from, the manager's perspective, integrations can be very useful. So we have two methods of doing integrations. We have our sync and save tool, which is a bi-directional tool that allows you to connect to another system, take some information out of that system, populate it in doForms, or go the other way and take some information you've collected in doForms and pop that into your other system. So let's say, for example, you are a customer who has a SQL database and you have all types of views and reports and, your whole configuration is perfect and it gives you everything you need. But right now you're manually entering that information in. What you can do with doForms is you can use doForms as the front end, and you can basically use us to collect the data and set up your integration to sync all of your collected data into your system, and it can follow your rules once it gets into your system, right? So if you have custom views, you have custom actions, whatever it may be, we can basically just drop the data off to your system, and then your system takes over and does your pre-existing, functions. So especially if you're a manager, if you're used to looking at a particular view, or you're used to looking at a particular database for information to, do your analytics or whatever it may be, you can absolutely use doForms as an automated way of getting that data submitted right in, instead of you having to manually input that in. Outside of the sync and save tool, we also have RESTful and SOAP APIs. So if you have somebody in your organization who's familiar with how you've set up your databases, and maybe you have stored procedures or things like that, we can basically use the web services to drop the data off at a schedule of your choosing, and you can basically take that data and tell it where to go. This information goes to this table, this information goes to that table, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a relational database. It doesn't need to be SQL or Oracle Access, anything like that. It could just be a simple Excel document. It can be Google Drive, Dropbox link. So there's about 40 or so different pre-built connectors that we have out of the box that you can use with the sync and save tool, or you can use kind of our web services to kind of custom build an integration into your system, whatever kind of makes sense. We have a full integrations team here at doForms. Their email address is integrationsupport@doforms.com. So if you are interested in any type of integration or have any questions on your specific system or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us. We'll absolutely, help you get set up and, basically get to anything you'd like to say. So from the integration side as a manager, it's just very helpful that if you're kind of set in your ways, or if you already have a system that kind of does everything you need, but you don't really have a way of getting data into that system, you can just use us to collect the data, and you as a manager can continue using, the same views or databases or system that you've been using. We just kind of take away that manual entry part of it, and allow you to kind of use doForms to get that data in automatically. And again, all of this is customizable. You can set schedules up to run, as frequently or as frequent as you would like. You basically can do whatever you need to do at that point. So, all in all here, we're going to leave the last couple of, last 10 minutes or so here for questions or anything like that. But just kind of to wrap everything up, everything that we kind of went through in this video here is really, as a manager, some of the added features that we've kind of thrown into doForms here. So mobile views, being able to bulk update things, we have reports that we can get you your data. So it really just shows that doForms is a complete full solution. It's not meant for just managers. It's not meant for just end users. It's not meant for, anybody in particular. We really get everybody that's involved in the workflow in your organization, an ability at least to view, edit, collect data, depending on what you allow them to do or what you configure them to do in your account. So with that should end the slideshow here. We have a couple of questions, Nick.
Yeah, just a few.
Few questions, guys. Okay, I'm going to answer some questions. Again, if we don't get to all of these in the next 10 minutes, just feel free to reach out to us. There's the Q&A part on the bottom of your screen, on your Zoom screen here. Feel free to enter some questions at the end here. But Nick, go ahead. What's the first question?
Is data forwarding free?
Is data forwarding free? So in terms of like free, you need to have a doForms license. So at a minimum, you need to have an advanced license in doForms. It is not included with the standard licensing. So if you have a standard license, you'd have to upgrade to at least the advanced package. Premium also has it included. And then in terms of the actual forwarding from one mobile user to another mobile user, as long as they're both licensed users, it doesn't cost you anything extra. The only time that you would have additional costs come in is if you're forwarding to people outside of your organization, which uses what we call credits. And you can purchase credit packages. They range from anywhere from 20 to 40 cents a credit. So basically, I think one of the packages is like for $100, you can get like a year's worth of forwards or something like that. So the only time you would have to worry about any additional costs for forwarding is if you are not forwarding to somebody who has a license in your account. If they have a doForms license, you can forward to them as many times as you want. You can forward back and forth, no additional cost at that. If you need to send to somebody outside of your organization, that's when we would start to use a credit, one to send and also one to receive back in. So depending on if that record's going to come back to your mobile or if it's just going to get submitted from that person, it could either be a credit or 2 credits depending on which. But if you're interested in that, just give us a call. We can explain it in detail for you.
All right, and then one more.
One more question. Okay.
Can a customer edit fields I've already filled out in a forward?
That is customizable. So you can, so the question was, can a customer or can somebody, the forward recipient make edits on what the first person had filled out? So that's up to you. You can have it either way. If you want to allow them to make changes, in the example of the managers getting, sign off, if they want to go in there and make a correction to maybe something the employee did, you can leave it uneditable. But all of our fields have read-only required and hide capabilities by entity. So you can pick and choose. There's an area called for the forward recipient where you can make fields read-only. You can make things hidden. So maybe the manager doesn't see the first part of the screen if you want to hide something. You basically have full control over what that recipient, the forward recipient, is going to see, what they're able to edit, and what they're able to view. So pretty much full control over all that.
Alrighty, and what was that integrations email for our integrations team?
The last question here was, what was the integrations email? It is integrationsupport@doforms.com. Can also be found on our website. Can also be found inside of your portal. If you click on the support tab inside of your My doForms portal, there's a support button that will prompt a form for you, and you can pick the integration side of things from there as well.
That's it.
That's it. All right.
Oh, we got one more.
One more.
Is Workforce Manager S-Class?
So yes, it's formerly known as S-Class when we were first designing it, but we have settled on the product name being Workforce Manager. So if you've seen S-Class demos in the past before we've kind of announced it, the official name that we're going live with is called Workforce Manager. So that's what you'll see going forward here. We've gotten rid of the S-Class name.
All right, and I think that's it.
That's it. Sure. Give another second or two. Okay, I think that's it. Again, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for coming out. We appreciate all of our customers. We appreciate you showing us support. If you saw anything in this video that you'd like to have some more information on, questions on, comments on, anything like that, pick up the phone, call us, shoot us an email, chat us on our website. We're available here for you guys. So, if you need us, just let us know. And again, thank you for coming out, and everyone have a nice day. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.